Welcome to Celebrity Investing, your go-to source for insights, tips, and updates on navigating the exciting landscape of personal and global finance. Please like, share, and subscribe for more exclusive content. Now we'll cover how to verify claims, the steps to check ownership and recognition, and what to do if you suspect fraud, reporting channels, and practical tips to protect your money. Where does the promise of a custom country usually pop up? Scams involving micronation land sales rarely target established, well-regulated areas. They thrive in remote, politically unstable, or legally ambiguous zones. These locations offer minimal governmental oversight, making it easier for fraudsters to operate. Desert plots in remote areas. The vastness of deserts and other isolated regions provides cover for these schemes. Scammers frequently promise cheap land in areas where oversight is minimal, land records are sparse, or access is difficult. They might claim ownership over patches of desert in remote stretches or legally disputed territories. Boundary ambiguity. In certain parts of the world, national borders in remote regions are not precisely marked. Scammers pick these spots. They try to convince buyers that this territory is unclaimed or in a legal grey zone, making it ripe for a new nation. Infertile and inaccessible. The land offered is often barren, infertile, and has no infrastructure. Purchasing property here seems cheap, but the cost reflects the uselessness of the actual plot. No one ever visits or builds, delaying the discovery that the seller never owned the land. Legally restricted zones. Sometimes the supposed plots are public land, such as protected wilderness areas or government-owned tracts. Fraudsters count on buyers not checking the legal status. If the land is remote, the actual owner may take longer to realize that fake titles are circulating. These desert deals sell the idea of expansion and opportunity, but deliver barren land legally owned by someone else. Tiny islands and seasteading promises that don't float. The romance of possessing a private island nation is a powerful lure. This appeal is exploited by micronation scammers who focus on questionable marine property concepts. These schemes generally involve selling parts of small islands or promoting speculative seasteading projects. Undefinable islands. These deals often involve purchasing a fraction of a tiny, often uninhabitable island, or a location near a dissolving piece of land. The geography itself is challenging, facing erosion, rising sea levels, or being too small to sustain development. The legal status of these plots is complicated by maritime zoning laws and environmental protection rules of the nearest country. The seasteading mirage. Seasteading involves building permanent, floating structures in international waters, claiming sovereign status. While complex on its own, it generates scam opportunities. Fraudsters sell ownership shares or future plots in a proposed structure that typically never gets past the concept drawings. Extreme hurdles for development. Developing anything offshore faces immense environmental and financial obstacles. These projects require billions in capital and approvals from international shipping and environmental bodies. When the projects stall, investors' funds disappear and the promised nation never materializes. If a seller offers you a cheap piece of sovereignty off the coast, check the tide charts. You might be investing in land that is underwater half the time, or a structure that exists only on a website. Checklist. 5 key legal questions to ask before you even consider buying. Before getting swept away by a new flag and presidential signature, pause and apply legal scrutiny. A legitimate property transaction involves transparency and verifiable records. If the seller cannot provide clear answers to these questions, walk away immediately. Can I pay real property taxes on this specific parcel to the recognized local authority? Legitimate land exists only if the recognized government tracks it for taxation. Which registered public land office holds the deed for this property prior to your micronation's claim? Every legitimate property has a history. They must trace the title back to the last known owner. If I take out a mortgage to buy this, will a major international bank recognize the title as collateral? Banks do rigorous title searches. If no established institution will touch the property, the title has zero legal standing. Is this land listed with a public identification number or parcel ID on the local cadastral map or registry? Real estate uses government-maintained coordinates and ID numbers for identification. If I build a structure, which municipality or recognized government authority will issue and enforce building permits and zoning codes? Permits and inspections are core government functions. If you can only get permits from the micronation, the structure will be illegal. What happens if I invest anyway? The legal and financial fallout. If you ignore the warning signs and invest, the purchase price is just the beginning. The serious repercussions come when you try to assert ownership or get your money back. Since your assets are tied up in a non-recognized entity, you face complete lack of legal and financial recourse. You bought a souvenir, not a property asset. No bailout. Many people assume that if they fall victim, the government will step in. When dealing with micronation real estate, this is almost never true. These schemes operate in a legal grey area. Sellers often claim they are a sovereign entity outside your government's jurisdiction. This claim acts as a shield against fraud laws. Foreign status claim. Because the seller claims to be a president or official of a foreign state, they distance themselves from your court system. You cannot readily sue a foreign government locally. Untraceable entities. Scammers structure operations to be untraceable, using shell corporations, international transfers, and claims of non-existent nations. Federal protections fail. Standard real estate fraud laws do not cover fantasy assets. Laws apply to recognized property, not titles issued by a self-proclaimed prince. You find yourself where courts cannot reach the fraudsters. Legal options drop to zero, leaving a complete loss. Tax trouble. When you spend money, tax agencies take notice. Reporting purchases of fake land is complicated. Non-deductible loss. If you realize the land is fake, you cannot always write off the cost as a business loss or capital loss, especially if the money was used on intangible assets rather than verifiable property. Reporting requirements. If you paid using cryptocurrency or international transfers, there may be reporting obligations. Failing to comply can lead to penalties. No basis for capital gains. Legitimate property establishes a cost basis for future sales. Fake land has no recognized cost basis and is valueless for tax purposes. Exit strategy 0. The worst outcome is that your investment is completely illiquid. Once the money leaves your bank, consider it gone. Chargebacks and reversals. Banks may refuse to reverse payments once funds move internationally, especially if labeled as non-refundable fees. Finding a new buyer. You cannot sell something with no recognized title. The secondary market for these non-assets is non-existent. Scammers vanish once they take enough money. Websites go dark, entities dissolve, and officials disappear. No tangible property to seize, no entity to sue. The allure of owning property in a self-declared nation is high, but the risks are catastrophic. Micronation land schemes sell a fictional title, not real estate. If a deal promises sovereignty but cannot provide verifiable records, it is a scam. Protect your capital in this video by focusing on legitimate opportunities. Diversify with real land that has clear deeds and legal standing. Avoid fantasy states. Choose assets where ownership rights are fully protected. Always verify the title and government registry. Keep your money safe. Stay tuned and continue to watch our videos to gain valuable insights into the world of finance. Subscribe, like, and share to continue your journey to financial success.